This is the Sports Hit List by the fans for the fans.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Pro Wrestling What Ifs. I am your host, the Outlaw of Long Island, Zach Droll. As always, I'm joined by a revolving door of guests. Up first, we have my co-host of the AEW Injection, the one and only Mr. No Days Off, Nick. How's it going, man?
Going good, Zach. Happy to be here.
Yep. And next up, we have of the Cheek Nation, Matt Williams. How's it going, man? 3 weeks in a row. Oh, you were muted.
3 weeks, baby.
Go.
3 weeks. Yes, indeed. I'm glad to be here as always, Zach. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. So today we have a very somber topic about the what ifs, and it's something that is very hard to talk about, and you can't really discuss what could have happened because it's really hard to tell if their career path would have went this way. But today's topic is, what if blank didn't pass away? This is a very touchy topic. I was surprised that Carl gave the green lit for this topic. But without further ado, I'm going to give it to you, Nick, because you have a lot of research on yours that you felt confident with.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the floor. Your time starts now.
Yeah, so basically, as you see by the shirt, we talk about Owen Hart today. Unfortunately, somebody that I never got to see wrestle perform, but obviously through the great power of social media, YouTube, Twitter, I have seen plenty of Owen Hart stuff with Brett, stuff with the Bulldog, and I saw some great stuff with Owen Hart. It's a real shame that obviously we all know what happened, the malfunction or the Over the Edge pay-per-view. But I'm going to take a look at, the little positive side. What if that didn't happen? What if, he did? What if he did that whole? They never decided to do the whole entrance like that, and he survived, and he went on to keep on wrestling. So that was in, I believe, 1999, and he was going as the Blue Blazer. It wasn't really a gimmick that was kind of over. A lot of people, some people liked it, some people didn't, but it kind of felt like a character that was never going to get him anywhere in the WWF at the time. So I was thinking, just say that whole thing never happens. Would he have jumped ship to WCW? Because Brett was already there at that time, I believe. Brett joined in 97. So imagine an Owen Hart in WCW. That could have given them a little bit more, fuel to the fire against, WWF and the Monday Night Wars. That's something to think about. Think about the matches he could have had in WCW. But what if he didn't go to WCW? What if he stayed in WWE? At the time, I believe Jericho debuted on Raw about 3 months later after Owen passed away. So those are some great matches we could have seen at the time. Kurt Angle was wrestling in dark matches. Those could have been, two technical guys like that. They would have put on 5-star classics. And really my final thing, and he should be there, but we all know the circumstance of why he's not. Owen Hart would be a Hall of Famer. He would be in the WWE Hall of Fame where he belongs, but we all know the circumstances won't allow it. And by all means, to each their own. That's, his wife's decision.
Yeah.
But it's a career that really got cut short and had so many possibilities. Oh, another thing, he would have been a world champion. I mean, hands down, he would have been a world champion. You can't even argue that. So I really do. It really sucks what happened, and I, wish we could have seen his career to the fullest.
Yeah. I also think about too, him fighting Eddie Guerrero would have been fire as well. All right, since do we want to cook on that? Anything you want to add to it?
I think let's cook a little bit on that.
Yeah.
I had the pleasure, being older, of watching Owen Hart on Raw and pay-per-view. And as a kid, because Owen was generally a heel, I kind of sided with Brett, but I always enjoyed Owen's matches better. I liked Owen Hart as a wrestler better than I liked Brett. And being someone who can't stand Stone Cold Steve Austin, I loved the Owen 316. And actually, the Blue Blazer was over because when he originally debuted in the WWF, he was the Blue Blazer. And bringing it back when he and Jeff Jarrett were tag teaming was a bit of nostalgia, and it was a fun comedy gimmick that was over with the fans. Mm-hmm. And him passing away as a result of that was tough. But if he stays alive, we do get to see him and Kurt Angle, because they had a dark match in 1999. We do eventually in like '01, we would get to see not just him and Eddie Guerrero, we would get to see him and Benoit. We would get to see him and Dean Malenko. We would get to see a lot of really great matches. Unfortunately, I don't think they would have made him world champion. There was talks about it before when he was feuding with Brett, and I think if they were going to do it, they were going to do it then. But at that time with The Rock, Austin, I don't think they would have put the title on Owen Hart, especially post the screw job. As much credit Owen could build up for himself, Brett's still the main star, and I can't see Vince doing that, especially with the rise of Triple H and obviously Undertaker still there. I don't see them elevating Owen Hart to main event status, even though he deserved it. He should have been like out. Putting the title on him over, like, even I love Foley, but over Foley would have made more sense if Owen was still around. But you would have had some fantastic technical matches with Owen there, and he probably still would have been there when Shawn Michaels came back, and to see great return matches between those two.
All right, yeah, I do personally agree. For me, I once again being a young fan too, I didn't get to see much of Owen Hart. The things I do remember are like the two slammy gimmick. That was fun to watch every now and then on YouTube and seeing back old stuff. Yeah, I do agree. Like if he would have never passed away, his career would have definitely had a big resurgence, like in the late '90s, or in the early 2000s.
Early 2000s, yeah. I
All
mean,
right.
can you imagine Owen Hart versus Rob Van Dam
Oh,
during the invasion?
Yeah, that's a whole angle I didn't even touch on. I kind of stopped at like 2000, but yeah, I mean that was the rise of the the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era. And if Owen could have been around for that, there's a multitude of possibilities of guys he could have worked with. I believe that it could have been a resurgence for his career.
and even
Absolutely.
think about it, if he was to stick around and didn't retire, and if he didn't have plans for retiring, imagine what he could have done at ECW One Night Stand if he was booked for that card.
Mm,
Like that could have been very interesting to say.
absolutely.
But now up next on the docket is Matt. Who do you have for what if blank didn't pass away? Your
So-
time begins now.
So my what if is someone kind of like you I didn't see much of because of my age, and that's Bruiser Brody. What if Bruiser Brody doesn't get stabbed in Puerto Rico in 1988? I was a whole 6 years old when this went down. So, but I think it would have been very interesting because Brody was a bit of a nomad and not known to be the easiest person to work with. But in '88, he was in his 40s. I think he was 42, I want to say. And Brody, he was over. No matter where Brody went around the territories, even though there weren't that many left by '88, he was over. And if he doesn't get stabbed in San Juan, I believe he probably goes and joins the WWF in the fall of '88 and debuts as a babyface. '89 comes around, the Mega Powers are doing their thing, and Hogan, the result says it does, and Macho ends up feuding with Brody, and there's just big money all over that.
Mm-hmm.
I do not think Bruiser Brody and Hulk Hogan lock horns because neither one of them was going to sell for each other, and neither one was probably going to take the loss. So that probably wouldn't have worked out. And I think because of that, and because that's where the top dollars are, I think Brody would have then eventually, by 1990, found himself in WCW, found himself with Flair, wrestling a upstart Sting, and having a couple years in WCW because there's also still the rivalry with Dusty Rhodes and a lot more familiar people for him to work with and make money with compared to what Vince McMahon was doing in the early 90s in the WWF. Bruiser Brody and the Ultimate Warrior would not have gone over.
Mm-hmm.
But Sting versus Bruiser Brody would have been something that really stabilized and solidified WCW in the early 90s.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Especially because like a lot of us got to know more about the Bruiser Brody story thanks to Dark Side of the Ring.
Right.
That did help a lot of things, and just hearing like how everything went down from the eyes of Tony Atlas, who gave probably what was a very good proper recreation of what he saw, and it was just like it's heartbreaking that like he definitely had a lot left he could have done for us.
I don't know about how much, because kind of like Owen, he was trying to wind down because he was already in his 40s, and by 92, 93 he'd have been 47. Like he wasn't trying to continue to hit the towns that way, and Vince was just ramping up hitting the towns, and so was WCW. So there was a lot he could have given us, main event wise, I think, definitely. But it's a shame, because when the big stars were just really starting to become national, Hogan had made pro wrestling a nationally cool thing. People who weren't wrestling fans were starting to recognize the Ric Flairs, the Stings. They were starting to become more than just wrestlers. They were starting to become pop culture icons. And Bruiser Brody could have been one of those lower level pop culture icons that made a ton of money in the ring, and maybe even out of it, as he was looking to phase out of the ring, anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking at pictures of him, I mean, that's Bruiser Brody's a guy that I really don't have much of, a connection with. I really can't say I've,
he's a big hillbilly, yeah.
Seen all his work, but I mean, just the look of him. I mean, and I'm gonna touch on kind of something that Zach's gonna talk about in a couple minutes, but looks like Brody Lee. He looks like everything that Brody Lee is today. Big guy, kind of has that just like unhinged look to him, and yeah, I mean, that's a shame. This guy I would have liked to, hopefully have seen more of.
He has the unhinged look, but he was an intelligent man.
Yeah,
insanely intelligent,
unhinged in his own ways, but yeah.
Now, on to mine, since we have I don't know where we're at with recording wise, because I'm recording on Zoom, because OBS decided to act very strange. But on to mine, I want to talk about what if Brody Lee didn't pass away. Like, where would think of the pops he would have got at Double or Nothing, or the moment fans came back to AEW when there was enough fans there, like, and the help he has done for John Silver, like all of Dark Order, really.
Yes.
I think personally, if he would have never passed, he would have got another shot at that TNT title, and it would have been him and Darby for that title. And would Darby have gone over? Probably, but I wouldn't mind if Brody Lee retained from the COVID era and out of the COVID era. He was a perfect TNT champion. He is forever the TNT champion in the halls of AEW.
Mm-hmm.
And even recently, talk more, but just kind of not really discussing where his career would have been. Like his son, I think, had a small little interview he had done with an article. He said there's a shadow of a doubt, I'm being a pro wrestler when I'm older. I want to carry on my father's his legacy. I want to carry that name, and that's pretty much what he's gonna do. I cannot wait to see what this kid has in store, because if you see on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, he's training, and he's for a 6-year-old. I know, an 11-year-old.
I think so, 11.
Yeah,
for an 11-year-old, he is really good. He's doing stuff I wish I could have done if I was 11.
I seen he's training with Liv Morgan and Natalia and Tyson Kidd. I mean, who knows? He's doing real training, but I mean, they're showing him the basics. I mean, I've seen the videos. He's doing good.
He's doing good, up and downs, really.
Yeah. He's not bumping at 11 years old, but I mean,
no, but he's putting the work in, and it's a sad thing. In my opinion, if Brody doesn't pass away, what we're seeing with Darby and Sting would have been Darby and Sting versus Brody Lee in the Dark Order, which would have been fantastic television. I think Darby doesn't go over initially for the TNT title. I think He doesn't go over until Sting comes to his aid and starts to then like really mentor him. And then Darby goes over and then they begin to have a long feud. That cinematic match that they had with Ricky and Starks in the I forget
Brian
who-
Cage.
and yeah, in Cage, I think that would have been against Brody Lee and maybe
Silver.
maybe Silver, or maybe even Uno. Who knows? Who knows what the Dark Order would have looked like at that time had Brody stayed. But it would have definitely been a Dark Order versus Darby and Sting match. It would have had more probably some more cinematography, definitely a lot more eeriness, a lot more mind games, and some fantastic promos would have happened and build up for that match. So
like I have a lot of favorite promos in AEW. Like my all-time favorite will forever be the first Pandemic show promo that Cody gave. That is still an amazing promo. Then his version of Hard Times, and then like my third favorite was the challenge for the dog collar match that Brody did to Cody, and he said like, and while your wife's on social media posting thirst traps, calling me daddy, like that is like an amazing like promo, and he's just so good. I wish he was still with us because that was that was like the first tribute show of wrestling I got to experience outside of the normal like WWE ones of like with Warrior and the legends before that. But this show, I cried watching. I legit was in tears watching the show. When it happened.
I can relate to that because the Raw after Over the Edge was so emotional because even though yes it's 99 and kayfabe is dead, but it wasn't completely dead. It hadn't completely died yet, and Owen wasn't too far removed from his Nation of Domination days and feuding with DX. So they had I don't know how old you guys were when this happened.
I was one.
You were one. Okay.
Yeah.
So
99, so I was one.
Yeah, okay. So unlike a lot of tribute, recently when people passed away, they were interviewing a lot of different wrestlers, and Michael Cole, I believe. It was Michael Cole or JR, I forget. They were sitting there, he was sitting there trying to interview Triple H about his feelings about Owen. And he couldn't speak. Like he couldn't get it out. He was just, his face was completely red. He was bawling. He couldn't talk. China had to talk for him. He was completely inconsolable. Rock struggled to cut his promo. And he had a match. Like it was such a tear-filled, heart-wrenching affair. Like I don't know anybody who watched that show and had a dry eye, like because everybody was just so in tears. And then switching over to Nitro and seeing Benoit wrestle Bret Hart and just bawling at that too. It was crazy emotional.
Yeah.
And going back onto the Brody thing, one thing I really like to see, I noticed it, was if you go back to the pre-pandemic wrestling, Dark Order was getting booed out of every building they were put in. They were not over whatsoever. Uno and Stu Grayson were just not it. And then fast forward to pandemic wrestling, what Brody does for them. Uno comes out at Double or Nothing to a roaring crowd. And you could tell Uno is like, wow, we made it, guys. This is it. This is the Brody Lee effect. So if Brody was able to do that for the Dark Order in front of no fans, imagine what he could have done for some of the other young guys that are in AEW. I mean, imagine the add-ons to Dark Order we could have possibly seen. Mm-hmm. I mean, the opportunities are endless. I think Brody Lee would have been a great backstage guy for AEW, for the young guys, a great coach. Like I said, what he did with Silver and Reynolds and Adam J and 10 and 5, I mean, it's just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I think it was like Preston Vance or 10. He was handpicked by
Yeah.
Brody. But
Because-
Brody was like, I want to make this kid a star.
So was Anna Jay.
And like
Brody
it-
saw Anna Jay, and he said that she's the next thing, and he wanted her in the group.
it's just so interesting because not to dwell on this too much longer, because I want to within time limits and at least get this out very fast. Brody Lee, like his debut, I'll never forget because he debuted the same day Matt Hardy did, right?
Yeah, that was the first Pandemic Wrestling show, which was supposed to be in his hometown of Rochester.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just like I can't think of all the possible matches. Like imagine if we got like another match where he hit him in Mox or even hit him in Kingston. Would have been interesting. And others, I would have loved to see him Brody and Sting go at it. Even Brody and Ogogo, if you want to throw like that newcomer in there.
Yeah.
Because like these guys are really good. And Brody, he was someone who could make people stars, along with these other guys like Owen made people stars, and Bruiser Brody, he even though he was a tough nut to crack, he made you a star in that ring,
Oh yeah.
regardless. But
I think the important thing to say with all three of the guys we talked about, it's very cliche, but don't cry because it's over, smile because it
Yeah.
happened. Be glad that we got these guys. These guys were a part of our lives and put so much, put their bodies on the line for us. And now all three of them are, resting in peace, and
Yeah.
that's how it is.
they're all having a big Royal Rumble right now up in the sky.
Oh yeah, they're the biggest supercard ever in heaven right now.
Oh yeah.
And Brody still refuses to sell.
He's still screaming, throwing papers at everybody.
Yep. All right, guys. We thank you all for watching. In the comments down below, give us your what if someone didn't pass away. I'm kind of interested to see. A lot of people would always pick out the two more obvious ones of Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit. I'd like to hear more people talk about this subject. But without further ado, I'm going to give my plugs where you can follow me and then so on and so forth. So you can follow me at Dark Shadows Ache literally everywhere on social media. You can follow me on the AEW Injection, which is in limbo on upload dates thanks to the NBA Finals. And then you can catch me on the Box Office Losers podcast, the audio version every Wednesday, wherever podcasts are found, and every Thursday on YouTube. Nick, where can we find you?
Simple. You can find me on the Wrestling Radar on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. We're gonna start posting some videos soon on YouTube, so stay tuned for that.
Yep. And Matt, where can we find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Rockin' Mr. Magic. The word rocking / off the G, MR Magic, Rockin' Mr. Magic. That's Facebook, and it's _ Rockin' Mr. Magic on Twitter. You can find Geek Nation Content R2 podcasts on Apple Podcasts and any podcast format, really. You can also find us on YouTube. Definitely check us out. And appreciate, again, as always, you having me, Zach.
All right. Thank you guys for coming, and we'll catch you all next time. Goodbye.
Thanks for watching the Sports Hit List. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. In fact, do it now.